with the Partnership Fund for New York City that runs the lab. Um, and so today, sorry. So today, what we want to do is spend maybe 10 minutes going through some information about the lab. And then we have Gabriel Weiss on the phone. He's one of the founders from Safekeep, and he's going to share some of his experiences going through the application process and being a participant in the lab. And so we're really, really happy to have him here sharing some of his wisdom and the tips, tricks, experience that he has that he's gained from his participation in the lab. So if we just talk a bit about the lab itself, it's an annual program. It's one of the longest running programs that I know about. And it is for select early and growth stage companies that are looking to refine their products, their messages, their positioning, and all the things that they need to hone in order to bring their products and services to market. And it is a really unique experience in that you get to participate with other folks that are in as participants in the process, but we've got many companies that have agreed to be chaperones and mentors, as well as companies that are can provide capital and other things. So you get a lot of exposure in the lab to folks that can help you with your journey, right, in your business. If we look at some of the key stats that we have around the lab, we've had $1.7 billion raised from our alumni, so participants that have been in the lab. You can read these: 311 proof of concepts, 1,300 jobs created, 44 partners. And it really is a great set of statistics on the success of the lab and what it can help you do. And some of these alumni companies you may have heard of as well. Those are listed down here in the bottom. But the connections and experience that folks get from participating in the lab is really valuable. I won't go through all of these sponsoring financial firms, but there's a couple pages of logos here. And these are top companies in the financial services space that have a presence in New York, really focusing on bringing your value, right, from the services and products you're developing into the New York area to create jobs and revenue and benefits. I think the next page has got some of the venture capital firms as well. So some of these you may be familiar with. If we think about what participants receive, they get mentorship from those participating financial institutions, and there's usually 5 or 6 of them that will interact with you during the course of the lab. And they get to look at your products and your services. They can help you with positioning. They can sometimes help you with honing your products and services as well, really matching them up with the needs in the market. And how do you develop the messages that you need around your products and services to make them commercially successful? And we also have a leadership program and direct engagement with some of the folks in our mentor network as well. And those are folks that can also bring their experience, not just as a potential client, but also as folks that have worked in it and done it. And so they can provide the feedback on your products and services as well. We also can help with workspace if it's needed. And so that's just there's just a lot of benefits. If we talk about the leadership program itself, it is a a series of sessions on topics related to FinTech and insurtech. They can help. There's panel discussions that can help on your proof of concept, navigating different things in procurement organizations, things to think about from a regulatory and compliance perspective. Even if there are specific things in your own business that you might need some coaching on. I know personally, I have helped do some coaching with some of the startups around program management and project management, around perspectives in the insurance industry. So, what is the context from a specific segment of the insurance industry, or how is this technology trend influencing the way that potential clients are thinking about where they need to set their priorities? So there's some things on the fly that we do as well based on the needs of different participants. We can help set up meetings with senior business leaders, meetings with regulators, and then some training on, media, messaging, PR. And really one of the key things here is this isn't a sales program. This is truly a mentoring program. And so all of these assets and all these people are really here to help you refine your products and services, refine your messages, think about how you sort of double down on the journey that you're going on as an insurtech or a FinTech, looking to make your mark. If we look at our mentor network, I won't go through all of these, but you can see these are significant people that have made an impact in industry. And these are folks that are available as mentors and advisors. And so if you're thinking about, who should apply and whether or not you'd be a good candidate for this program, really you should be asking yourself a few things. Are you a startup that's serving the financial services or insurance industries? Do you have a product or services that is, B2B or B2B to C? Is there something really innovative that you're doing that addresses a unfulfilled need in the market? Do you have at least a beta version of a technology product? Can you be present in New York during March and June? And we accept folks that have ranges of investment seeds, anywhere from seeds to Series B. So if you're in this early stage with an innovative product or service, you've got something that you can show that's in at least a beta version, and you could be available in New York between March and June, then you'd be a really good candidate for this program. And then, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but, we can think about some of the things that are really impacting the way that FinTechs do business, insurtechs in particular, since I'm from the insurance industry. There's some things on here that obviously are pervasive today, like blockchain and cyber. But when I think about the insurance industry, I really think about all the change that the world has gone through in the last couple of years. And in some ways, we've all been through sort of the biggest forced pilot of remote working and reimagining how you stay connected to customers. And so that's created a lot of opportunity, challenges, and opportunity for folks to come in and help some of these large financial services companies with the way that they harness their data, the way they look at analytics and decision making and customer experience design and customer engagement, as well as inclusion and diversity. Products have to change because the customers that these companies are selling to, their needs have changed. And so what are the new products that need to be out there? How do you address gig economy? How do you bring sustainability, right, and environmental awareness, social awareness to financial institutions? So, I think if the premise of your business is sort of addressing any of these needs with technology, then you also would be a really good candidate. So if we think about some of the key dates, applications are due on December 1st. We have finalist demos in February, the beginning of February. And so, we'll be going through the application vetting process between December and February to get to a set of finalists. And then we'll select the folks that actually come into the program, and the program starts in late March of 2022. And then, we have our final demo day in June. So that's really the 6-month timeline on the program, from application submission to selection of finalists, and then the demo days for the folks that get into the program. I think that's all the prepared material that we have for today. So, I mentioned that we have Gabriel on the phone, and he went through the program, and we thought hearing from his experience would be really helpful for folks that are looking to learn a little bit more. So, Gabriel, I don't know if you wanted to do an introduction first, and then I've got a few questions that I thought you might be able to help the group with.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, pleasure to be here. I'm not sure I can really do justice to a lot of what the FinTech Innovation Lab is, or the experience of others, but I'm happy to speak to my own experience and certainly give a glowing endorsement, but also talk about some of the things that that we learned. So my name is Gabriel Weiss. I'm based in New York City. I'm originally from Switzerland. I'm the co-founder and chief customer officer at a fintech called Safekeep. We are going through our Series A right now. We're about 20 people, and we're a machine learning platform that sells into insurance carriers and some other organizations, but we don't need to go too much into that. I've been with Safekeep going on a year. Previously spent 5 years in consulting, and then earlier in my career, I was an infantry officer in the U.S. Army. So good to be here with everyone, and I'm happy to kind of answer questions and speak about my experience and lessons learned. Again, this, my experience, my perceptions, certainly some things that I share may be unique, and so Yasmin, Morteza, or whomever, please kick me under the virtual table if I get something wrong.
Thank you for that. Maybe we just start with some of the basics. How did you hear about the lab, and why did you apply?
So we always just kind of have our tentacles open for these kinds of opportunities. There's a lot of accelerators. There's a lot of awards programs, and the things you always weigh are time and effort as inputs, and what is the output, right? Rick, you kind of showed those couple of slides of the banks, the insurance companies, the asset managers, and the investment firms that are associated with the FinTech Innovation Lab in partnership for New York. Yeah, I think that for us was really kind of the differentiating mark, right? That led us to apply. The fact that you all are associated with kind of that top tier of potential customers for us, and potential investors for us. And I know, you said it today, Rick. It was said to us at many junctures throughout our time in the lab, this is not a sales fueled program. That being said, for every CEO, founder, executive, whatever leader at a fintech on this, of course, we're constantly thinking about how to drive growth, and we're obsessed with that, as we absolutely should be. So this isn't a sales-oriented program, but it is going to do things to accelerate your sales and go-to-market motions and abilities and maturity by light years. So we were drawn to that.
No, that's great. And how was the overall application process? Was it hard? If I don't know if you applied to other programs as well,
Yeah.
maybe compare and contrast it to other programs that you.
We did. It wasn't the most arduous. It wasn't the easiest. That being said, everything that we did are motions that you have to go through anyway. So there was no part of the application that was time poorly spent, because everything we're doing is at least a thought exercise, or writing materials, or figuring out how to articulate your value proposition that you should be doing anyway. So it's, I wouldn't look at the time that you commit towards applying to the FinTech Innovation Lab in a vacuum, but rather in the context of things you need to be doing and that are substantive and beneficial regardless.
Terrific. So, you applied to the lab, and you went through the different steps in the application process, and you got selected to be a finalist and go through the program. Can you speak to your experience with the lab? How was that experience? And what did you find most valuable? What were the different aspects of the lab that you interacted with, and how was each one of those components a valuable experience for you?
Yeah. So I think you can kind of broadly characterize, while you're in the lab, you can kind of bucket all of the activities and actions into three groups. One group is the kind of direct experiences with the labs, right? These are the class interactions itself, the interactions with the team members of the lab, kind of the ongoing, I don't want to call them lectures, but the kind of learning sessions. So that's bucket number one, of those direct interactions. Those are good, those are fun, those are interesting, always substantive sessions, and we learned a lot. The second bucket are the experiences that you have with the mentors. And Rick, you showed kind of a slide of some of them. So some of these individuals are world-class minds, CEOs, founders, investors, thought leaders in AI, in SaaS business models. And some will be more relevant to you and your organization than others. But these are conversations that kind of meant the world to us, and we're in touch with many of those people now still. There are connections that we got through that. There are pieces of advice. There's kind of a reflection there, that was extremely valuable. Getting to not just kind of spend time with these kinds of folks, in a get to know you context, but really deep substantive conversations, right? And we had in-person sessions. We shared meals with some of these leaders in industry, and benefited quite a bit from their advice. And it's not just one or two. You get to do this with a handful of them, so you'll get conflicting advice, which is great, right? And that gives you the room to figure out what really works for you. The third bucket of interactions is with the sponsor companies themselves. So we, as I mentioned, we sell into insurance carriers. I think we had 5 or 6 insurance carriers select us to partner with. Each of those had a mentor or a kind of a sponsor that was assigned to us. You spend a lot of time with that sponsor. That person is an advocate on your behalf within your organization, and then is really kind of responsible for facilitating a number of intros and getting you in front of stakeholders at those insurance carriers or banks that you would be selling into. If you go into the lab thinking, well, I'm going to have an introduction to this bank or to that insurance carrier, and it's going to equip me to make a sale there, that's the wrong mindset to have, right? And anybody here who's been selling in a B2B context knows that these are kind of very long cycle, multi-campaign sales motions. And so if you look at the interactions and these relationships that you build with these customers, potential customers, in the context of those long-term engagements, those long-term kind of campaigns to secure one of those banks or insurance companies as a customer, then it's extremely valuable, right? And we are now closing deals, we're acquiring those customers, we're onboarding some of those mega top tier global behemoth carriers that we were partnered with in the FinTech Innovation Lab. It's not only because we were partnered with them in the FinTech Innovation Lab, but that was extremely instrumental in kind of helping us get in deeper with them, build the right relationships, have the credibility to continue cultivating them, and finally now close them as customers. And being part of the FinTech Innovation Lab does mean something to the C-suite of these organizations that are part of the partnership for New York City. It's a mark of credibility. It's when they look out and they see a crowded sea of fintechs and insurtechs, they want to know that that you're not just part of the noise, and so it helps you stand out quite a bit.
No, it's terrific. I mean, I meet with clients all the time, right? And one of the things that I know is that there's three things that are invaluable to a client. They'll take a meeting and walk away saying that was time well spent if you do one of three things or all of three things. One is you give them context on the competitive environment, right? Especially as a consultant, right? Like we have perspective on their competitors because we work with them. And so you have to do that, ethically and responsibly, but if you can provide some competitive insight, that's really valuable. Number two, if you can contextualize what's going on in the market or the industry, so technology trends, economic trends, social trends, right? And you can make that relevant. Also, we bring context to that, that sometimes is hard for a client to get themselves because they're in their own organization and bubble and they do their own thing every day. And then the third thing is if you can bring observations about their own organization, right?
Yeah.
And how that organization works, and that's really valuable. And as I think about the mentoring that our participants get from your sponsors, your chaperones, from these advisors, that's what you get as a participant in this program, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think those are the types of that's the type of feedback that you get, a part of it, anyways. And so,
and just kind of 2 points on that, or maybe 3 points on that. It's a very so to the perspective of if you're selling into banks, into insurance companies, to the perspective of your customer, there's a lot of noise out there, right? There, at last count, there's how many thousands of early stage fintechs and insurtechs, and whatever you're doing, chances are somebody has pitched or is talking about or ideating something similar. So to have that market credibility is significant. When we call on Chubb or AIG or USAA or Marsh, for their executives to know that we are, have that stamp of approval and part of the program that their organization is sponsoring and is partnered with, that is getting past that first barrier in terms of credibility and helping you stand out from the crowd. So that's really important. The kind of net effect of the FinTech Innovation Lab for us as an organization was it just accelerated our maturation as a team, right? We got the feedback. We had the kind of numerous opportunities to present to prospective customers that we needed to really get our messaging, to get our go-to-market motions to the next level. And we had a lot of hard lessons learned, right? We had a lot of kind of standing up for a big meeting in front of a prospective customer, in front of all the key stakeholders, and just getting it very wrong. But to have that experience in the context of the FinTech Innovation Lab and then get that feedback, and then because you're part of the lab, to have the opportunity to come back to the customer and basically do better, and learn quickly, that's a unique experience. And then the final thing is you get a lot of advice, and you have to take it all in aggregate, because sometimes the advice that we got from one sponsor versus the advice of another sponsor was not just not overlapping, it was directly conflicting. But you need those different perspectives so you can weigh out the kind of the path forward that is going to be the best fit for who you are as a founding team and as an organization.
Was there any specific feedback that you received that was most helpful? I mean, if there's something that you feel comfortable sharing, right?
Yeah. So when I talk about the conflicting, we got a lot of conflicting feedback around land and expand versus stay really disciplined and focused on our one use case, right? And I don't think that that's a debate that ever goes away. But hearing that feedback in its conflicting form from multiple people on the investor and on the customer side, and then why they had that opinion based off of where they were in the organization and what their incentive was, that's really important for you, so you can kind of play that back and reverse engineer it and understand how to thread that needle yourself. We got, and I don't want to sound like overly confident about this, but compared to where we started, certainly we got pretty good at telling our story and articulating our value proposition. And the other thing that we learned is telling the story and articulating your value proposition is one thing for prospective customers. It's another thing for prospective investors. It's a different pitch. It's a different story. And we really had an opportunity to accelerate our ability to convey that by many, many, many months. So I sometimes say to our team, particularly people that we're onboarding and hiring now that weren't part of the FinTech Innovation Lab, I'll share lessons that we learned while we were part of the lab. And I'll say, we spent, 2 or 3 months with the lab, or 4 months, however long it was, but we grew by 4 years in terms of our maturity as an organization during that period.
That's terrific. Maybe you could share a little bit, not necessarily like a day in the life, but during the course of your participation, what was the level of engagement that you had with mentors and sponsors? Like, how often did you meet? How many did you meet, et cetera?
Yeah, so 1 or 2 sponsors, kind of key chaperones, if you will, for each of our partner organizations. Some are more involved than others, and they each have their own approach. I'd say on average, we were interacting with them, once every 7 or 8 business days, right? And that was either them engaging with us directly, and then them introducing us to other stakeholders across the organization. You want to understand who your sponsor is at their organization, right? So if you're selling into a bank or at an insurance company, and that bank or insurance company has selected you to sponsor through the lab, they'll assign you that sponsor representative, that chaperone. You want to understand who they are in the organization and what they're looking for in terms of making you look good, so you can both make each other look good, right? Because that sponsor is going to expend quite a bit of political capital at that bank or insurance company to put you in front of a bunch of stakeholders and basically advocate on your behalf that their time well spent for you. So you really want to understand what they're looking for from you. You want to listen to their feedback. They know their organization well. They know these stakeholders. They know the pitfalls. If a sponsor tells you, "Hey, don't sell on this call," don't sell on that call. If the sponsor tells you, "Hey, be a little bit more bold and kind of stand up and make it clear that you're the best at what you do," then definitely seize that opportunity. But they're very helpful by and large.
Excellent. No, it's great. Illuminating the experience for folks is always helpful. You had mentioned that you thought that the lab accelerated the maturity of your business. Is there anything in particular you'd point to around how the lab impacted the development of your business?
Yeah. So the lab is a mirror. It's like holding up a very intense mirror on you, on how you present, on your team, on your product, on your demo, on how your value proposition is viewed by prospective customers, weighed against the context of the fintech ecosystem at large. So, one thing that we learned is that we thought, and now we know we're doing something that's very unique, but the way we were telling that story was not resonating. And at first it was coming across as something that had a lot of overlap, where there actually wasn't that overlap. So we really had to work on our messaging to differentiate ourselves more clearly. So you hold that mirror up to yourself, and it's a mirror that is going to reflect what investors are seeing, what prospective customers are seeing, and then what advisors and mentors are seeing as well. The people that are kind of, as I mentioned, the coaches that are the thought leaders of the industry, that have seen startups come and go, that know what it means to scale successfully, that know what an organization has to take. Holding that reflection to yourself is going to cause you to grow quite a bit, quite quickly.
That's great. Do you have any advice for applicants? As you were once where they are right now, like maybe even listening to one of these sessions, what advice would you have for folks, both in terms of applying or not, but also participating in the lab?
Yeah, do apply. Take the time to apply. It's time well spent. Every part of it is something that you've either written or done before, or something that's helpful for you to do. And then go into it with a very open mind and leverage every opportunity to learn. Hear every bit of feedback. If there's one word to describe your experience with the lab, it's to listen. So take that opportunity to listen. Take it all with a grain of salt, of course. At the end of the day, you're the team that is kind of driving your organization to the next level. So you have to know what fits for you. But do take the opportunity to get the feedback and to grow. It's a lot of freebies, right? It's a lot of freebies. There are many other times where when you have that opportunity to try to sell to an important stakeholder or an investor or a potential customer and kind of share who you are, there's a lot of opportunities where if you don't get it right, you won't have an opportunity to do it again. It counts against you. So this is different in that you have an opportunity to get it a little bit wrong, to hear the feedback, to learn, and then to do it again. And it's not counted against you. And we've been part of many accelerators. That is a unique situation with the FinTech Innovation Lab that is pretty worthwhile. And then have fun with it. I mean, you get to interact with some great people in terms of the other executive and founding teams, great people on the FinTech Innovation Lab side, working with the coaches, these kind of industry leaders, former CEOs and board directors and successful investors. The interactions with them were very, very enjoyable, and you get to have fun in terms of, you don't just have to think about kind of the immediate existential nature of where you are as a startup. You get to kind of entertain some broader creative ideas a little bit, and make the space for that. It may not convert into a sale or a new product launch in the next couple of months, but it is a lot of fun, and it's good kind of it's good ideation for future roadmap. And we ended the lab this summer, but now as we kind of look towards the end of 2021 and we're closing sales and we're closing our round and we're growing, now we're coming back to a lot of those fun, creative ideas we thought about, that kind of next level vision and roadmap we thought about with these coaches. Now we get to come back on that and explore it and make it real. So make the space for that as well and have fun with it.
That's terrific. Anything else you want to share, Gabriel, before we close down our session?
No, I think that's it. I'm happy to kind of answer any questions. One thing I really do want to just continue to reinforce that was I mentioned this, but this was a major revelation to us. The story you tell to prospective customers and the story you tell to investors is different, and it needs to be. And in terms of a very tactical output, the lab is the perfect context where you're going to get every opportunity to hone that story for both sides of it.
Great. That's great. Yeah, I don't know, Jennifer, Yasmin, Morteza, if there's anything else you wanted to share or we forgot to cover today.
Thank you, Rick. I think we can maybe use the time to let the audience ask any questions if they have it, but I think we did cover really good ground.
Yeah, terrific. Are there any questions from the audience?
Feel free to take them in or just shout out.
Gabriel, could you be a little bit more specific about how that story for the investor versus the customer needs to be different? Because I would imagine in your pitch deck, basically, your value proposition and, target and things of that nature, your TAM and so forth are going to be the same. So where does it differ?
Yeah, it's in the mechanics of implementation, right? I mean, so Celeste, I'm not sure what what you're selling, but at some point I imagine there's some integration or IT resources or data transfer, something that's going on a technical level, right? On an implementation or integration level. That is really that's really going to define a lot of your interactions and a lot of the hesitancy on the selling to customer side. And that's then where you really kind of get into the deep-weeded mechanics with prospective customers, right? Is sorting through that, because they're viewing you not as a binary of, do I want to buy your solution or not, but rather in the context of every other product they may want to buy, or not even buying product, right? Rather in the context of buying you versus not doing anything at all, right? So because they already have 50 million competing IT requirements or engineering efforts or data modernization, digitization, every buzzword you can think of, right? So they're viewing you in that context, and the opportunity cost for them is very different than it is on the investor side. Whereas on the investor side, they have capital, they're going to find a target and they're going to write a check to invest in, right? So they're viewing you in the context of, are we investing in you, or are we writing a similar check to another interesting fintech that we also think is cool? And so what you have to do to convey to them is convey that you're a more interesting investment and that you have a more compelling value proposition and more propensity to growth with less potential risks. So they write the check to you versus to others. Whereas again, with the customer, the equation is very different. And sometimes the mechanics come simply down to, well, I can buy you and maybe I get something, some value to my organization from that, or I can do nothing because I'm already doing a lot and, we're really busy and we have a lot of requirements. So learning how to tell that stories to both sides, you're in the lab, you're going to have every opportunity to absolutely nail that to perfection on both sides of the aisle. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Celeste?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we're already on the right path. So that's good to know. Thanks.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah. When we don't make a sale with a customer, it's never because they think somebody else is better, because the problem that we're solving, which is, very, very kind of boring and niche, it's a unique solution. When we don't make a sale, it's because they choose it's easier to do nothing, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because in our case, we're very niche. We've got a very, very niche solution for the BSA AML space. So
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
and the customer has the option. not so much that they don't do anything, but that they could do it themselves internally, but we've got.
That's right. That's right. And the risk of buying you in their calculation, I'm sure they're wrong, may exceed the risk of doing nothing. Whereas for the investor, they're going to take some risk, right? They're going to write a check. They just want you to be the best check they write.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was helpful.
Other
Hi,
questions?
Yeah, Cyrus.
Hi, Gabriel, Rick. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the talk. I just had a question about, is there any cost involved from the startup side when it comes to going through the program?
I'll let Rick answer that.
Actually, I'll let Yasmin. I mean, there's a small warrant, right, that that comes into play, and Yasmin can talk about that.
Yes, so no cost to apply. If you are admitted and choose to participate on the partnership fund side, we will negotiate a warrant agreement with you. And that looks like a 50 basis point agreement based on fully diluted common stock. So priced, and we kind of view it as, we price it that way because we view it as, we view ourselves as an external advisor, and we think that that's a comparable, I guess, price that you would provide to an advisor. So that's just kind of how we're viewing ourselves and why we're pricing it that way. So 50 basis points, 0.5%.
So Cyrus, we are, I'm not going to speak for others, but I can speak to our experience with that. There's nothing more important to you than your equity, right? And your IP, your product. We're pretty stingy as an organization philosophically with our equity. We don't really mess around with that. Every endorsement I made of the lab was with that in mind, right? So that to say, we felt very comfortable getting bang for our buck on that.
Actually, I'll just follow up on that really quickly. That's a good point, Gabriel. Yes, especially depending on what stage of fundraising you're at, I know that can be kind of a tough pill to swallow for some. So we're very happy and willing to speak to members of your board, members of your executive team. We're happy to put you in touch with alumni. So we're with you on that process and journey.
How many companies do you look to onboard into the program annually?
About 10.
Yeah, 10. So we have 10 companies that make it to finalists and go through the actual program.
Hey, thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Rick, for sharing what's the value prop of the fund, the terms. I had a more specific question to Rick, probably, where you listed the list of use cases that the fund is interested in. There is blockchain stands as number one, but it's more a technology, and you presented that as a business use cases that you were interested in. Can you please unwrap this a little bit, like what value you see blockchain would be creating as a successful case, and if you can share a little bit what type of mentorship or advisory you can provide for implementing, kind of conveying value prop and helping those companies that would potentially use that to adopt this.
So I'll address blockchain first. I mean, the things that we put down on the list were just technologies that are impacting the world around us right now, and including insurance. If we think about blockchain for insurance, there are some places where there are good use cases, right? When you've got, carriers and financial institutions, and you're trying to, validate a transaction, right? And the genealogy of that transaction. So let's say it's, maybe it's health records for life insurance underwriting, right? And you want to make sure that, and you're setting up a appointment to get medical work done in order to feed an underwriting process. Like that's a use case where blockchain could be really helpful. You could have a barcode on your phone and you could scan in different places, and but I would say, just generally speaking, in insurance, I've yet to see a really great use case for blockchain in insurance. If I think about property casualty insurance or life insurance outside of the initial underwriting process. And part of the reason is that the power of blockchain really is the power of the network, right? You need to have lots of players in it to make blockchain an underlying component of the network effect, right? With lots of players interacting. And so, I've seen consortiums, we've got like, there's like Risk Block, right? That's out there and doing some stuff, and they've gathered folks. But I wouldn't narrow in just on blockchain on that sheet. I'd just say, the cyber, the data, future of work, inclusion and diversity, analytics, customer experience design, and how you interact with customers. I think all of these things are areas of significant change and impact. I mentioned the last 2 years has been the biggest forced pilot of remote working, right? That no client would ever have raised their hand and said, I had a meeting last week with the vice chairman of a large insurance carrier, and we were just shooting the breeze, and I just said, as a consulting practitioner, if I had come to you and said, hey, what do you say in a month we make your entire workforce remote enabled, right? And we could, reduce real estate costs, and we could, X, Y, and Z, whatever it was. But I was going to make your entire workforce remote enabled. He just laughed. He's like, you're right, but we had to do it, right? And it's ended up creating a new normal that's still forming, right? And I think thinking about some of these technologies and getting ahead of that curve, how are these things going to impact the new normal, right? I think there's a ton of opportunity there for folks that are innovative and smart and can come to the table. And it may mean that you think about the offering you currently have, the product or service that you're formulating around, and you really step back and think, what else could we do, right, to capitalize on what this new normal could be. So I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe if you can clarify a little bit, how much support companies implementing blockchain can get from advisory, from previous alum, if there's any comment about that.
Yeah, if we think about our mentor network, I mean, there's some really terrific, world-renowned folks in our mentor network, and most of our partnership organizations or sponsoring organizations, most of them have innovation labs as well, right? And they are, they're not sitting back and going, well, blockchain's not ready yet, or we're not ready for blockchain. They're experimenting and they're pushing boundaries in their innovation labs. And some people are doing some things with blockchain, but I think we're all, in blockchain in particular, we're all waiting for sort of a tipping point moment, right? I think for blockchain. That's just my personal opinion, right? So, but if you've got that tipping point idea, then that's outstanding, and there's lots of people that can help you with that, right?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate the answer.
Any other questions from anyone? Great. Orteza, anything else that you want to go through today?
No, thank you so much. I think we're good to wrap up.
Gabriel, I can't thank you enough for, oh, was that someone?
It was me. I was just gonna let everyone know I'll send out the deck that we covered as well as the application link after this call. That's it. Over to you, Rick.
Gabriel, thank you so much for participating today. You know, the experience and the commentary on it that you provided was really useful for me just to understand a little bit more in hindsight what you got out of going through the program. And I'm sure it was really useful to all the folks that are listening today.
To anyone, please let me know if I can answer any questions directly. Feel free to reach out. And if there's one takeaway, highly recommend applying. We found every moment of our experience, every minute of it, to be really substantive and worthwhile. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Tuesday.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.